What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Cards and Coffee. If you're looking for a broken deck that won't break your wallet, then you've come to the right place. Thanks to the release of Strike of Albaz, we now have some really amazing cards at a really amazing price. But first, as always, guys, if you haven't already, please go grab yourself a cup of coffee or something. That way you guys can sit down and tune in. Let's do this. All right, guys, I'm super excited to jump into this, but right off the bat, I do want to say this is a budget build. It's more than just structure decks, but this deck will not be playing ALUBER or CHIMERA or some of the other extra deck cards that might cost more money like DPE or Dragoon. And in addition, there are some staples I've cut out as well that are north of $50 plus. So really, in my eyes, those kind of cards are not budget. And to be honest, I think the most expensive card in this deck is like a $12 card. So with that in mind, just know everything in this deck is going to be either from the 3 structure decks or $5 to $10 cards. The deck is super cheap, and really, for the price of 1 ALUBER and 3 structure decks, you get this entire broken budget deck. Now, if by the end of this video you still find it's a little out of your budget, don't worry, I did do a $30 3 structure deck build as well, so if that's something you're into, please go check that out. So now, with all that out of the way, jumping into the profile, starting things off, I am playing 2 copies of our main fusion material, Fallen of Albaz. Now, in my previous 3 structure deck build, I was playing 3 of this card, but ideally 2 is the magic number. This deck is a lot more consistent, a lot more powerful, and of course, you're able to recycle this card off of Lubellion's effect, and since we have so many different extenders in this particular build, being able to recycle this card is very easy. Even though Albaz does have a pretty cool effect being able to fusion summon using your opponent's monsters like a Super Poly, more times than not, I don't want to draw this card, because going first, it really does nothing. After the Albaz, we are playing 3 copies of Spriggan's Kit. You don't get ALUBER in this deck, but you get the next best thing. Spriggan's Kit is an amazing card on normal or special. You can add a branded spell or trap from your deck to hand, just like ALUBER, but the only downside is after you do that, you have to put 1 other card in your hand back in the deck. Obviously, ALUBER is the better card, and that's why it's $100 right now. But until we get the reprint, which honestly I still think is going to be pretty expensive, this is going to be your next best option. Not only is this the best way to search into your branded fusion, but it also has another effect where if you have a fusion monster that lists Fallen of Albaz as a material on the field or in your graveyard, you can special it from your hand for free, not taking up your normal summon, which is honestly pretty dang amazing. The only downside to this card is it is not a Despia card, so we can't search it off of Tragedy, which we are going to be playing in this budget build, but we do play an Iron Dash Dragon in the extra deck, so if ever we dump it with Mirror Jade, then obviously that gives us an amazing follow-up because Iron Dash Dragon has the effect to, of course, search any Spriggan's monster during the end phase. After the kit, I am playing 1 more new monster from the structure deck. I am playing 1 copy of Tri-Brigade Mirror Courier. This card's pretty amazing. It's basically a effect veiler that functions similar to Ghost Ogre. It's actually pretty amazing because it doesn't specify where that effect activates, so it can stop grave effects, banished effects, or even hand traps. But not only that, it does have an amazing effect when it's banished. It can add any monster from your deck that mentions Fallen Albaz in the text. So again, this is actually another way to get into your Spriggan's Kit, make it to where you can have amazing follow-up, or just get into your first turn combo that much easier. As a little spoiler, I am playing the 1 copy of Gold Sark, so this is also a target for that to get you access to your kit, making it to where I guess in total you do have 7 copies of Branded Fusion now. But in addition, we do have another target for that Gold Sark. We are also playing 2 copies of Despia Tragedy. Despian Tragedy is really amazing for the Despia archetype. Whenever it's sent to the grave or banished, you can add a Despia monster from deck to hand. This is the main way you would get ALUBER, but in this case, all this is going to grab us is fusion summoning fodder. All in all, this is a great secondary package for the deck, even without ALUBER, because all these big level 8 Despia monsters have some really amazing synergy with all these new branded fusions. But we'll talk about that later. Not only does this search your monsters, but it also has a great graveyard effect where if you did not use the search effect in the turn, you can banish it to reset one of your spells from your graveyard. So if you Branded Fusion turn 1, then you know as long as this stays in the grave, you get Branded Fusion for sure next turn. After the Tragedy, we played the 1 Ad-Lib. This card is super amazing, and even the more expensive builds are going to be playing this card. It has a cool effect on the field where you can make all your monsters gain 100 attack by its level, so it can set up some really cool OTKs when you partner it with something like Branded Opening. But the main reason we're playing this card is because whenever you fusion summon using it as a material or banish it, you can special summon any of your fusions from your banished or graveyard. So it's great recursion, and it makes it to where you can abuse Mirror Jade multiple times in one turn. It's pretty crazy. After the Ad-Lib, we are playing the 1 Dramaturge. This is just another great card for the deck. If this card, while in your hand or on the field, is used as a fusion material and sent to the grave or banished, you can special summon it back onto the field, so it's a free 3k beater. Plus, whenever your opponent summons an extra deck monster, you can negate a monster effect on the field as a quick effect. So that's pretty amazing because it doesn't have to be the monster that they summon, but it also stops really pivotal cards like Halqifibrax or even Auroradon. Again, it's nothing too flashy, but I think this little monster lineup as a secondary package for the deck is really amazing, and it's also going to add a lot of grind and power and versatility to your branded fusion monsters. After the Despia package, I am playing 1 more budget package alongside it. I am playing the Fluffle package in the form of 2 Edgem Chain. I actually could see the more expensive builds playing this as well. The versatility and the power and extension that this engine offers is actually really amazing. And of course, if you have access to Chimera, that card becomes even better because now Polymerization is in your deck. In case you don't know what Edgem Chain does, whenever it's sent from your hand or field to the graveyard, you can add 1 Fright for Patchwork from your deck to your hand. It doesn't work when you send it off of Branded Fusion, which is unfortunate, but we have a bunch of ways to get this effect off. And the main reason we do play this card is because Fright for Patchwork adds another copy of Edgem to your hand, and it will add Poly as well. So not only is this a great fusion material, but it gives you more extension in the form of more fusion summons. And again, like I said, if you did happen to have access to Chimera, then this makes this engine even better. So that's it for the engine stuff as far as monsters go, but we do play a handful of hand traps here because unfortunately the meta calls for it. First, we're playing 3 copies of Effect Veiler, which luckily came in our structure deck. After that, we're also playing 3 copies of Ghost Ogre, which also came in our decks. And the last hand trap I'm playing is 2 copies of Ghost Spell. You could easily play 3 of this as well. It's, I believe, $5 to $8 right now, and I think this card is really amazing. With Adventure running around, stuff like Ghost Ogre is a staple, but not only is Ghost Ogre good, but Ghost Bell can serve a similar purpose, being able to stop stuff like the Enchantress. Now again, if by the end of this profile you already have a lot of these staple hand traps in the meta, maybe you already have Ash Blossom or maybe you already have Nibiru, there are cards you can cut and sub out for some of the other cards I have in this deck. But again, I'm trying to keep players' budgets in mind. So obviously if you have access to some of these more powerful hand traps, then you definitely want to be playing them. There's just some other cards I might take out in the deck. But with that being said, that is my budget monster lineup. Nothing too fancy, and I definitely think it'll get the job done. Moving on to the spells, we have 3 copies of Branded Fusion. This is actually the most expensive card in this entire deck. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this card is about $12 to $13 right now. And outside of this, I think the next most expensive card that I can think of is about $7. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments down below. But yeah, this is honestly the most expensive card in your deck. And to be completely honest, with how small our Despia package is, you could probably not even play this card. Branded Opening is really amazing. It is a teleport for the deck. We don't have ALUBER, but we can still get Tragedy, and then you can use that to fusion summon and get access to more of your Despia package. Not only that, you can use it to bring out Dramaturge on your opponent's turn for more interruption. Or again, if you're trying to set up an OTK, you can bring out Ad-Lib and buff up all your monsters. Branded Opening is a very versatile card, and it also has the graveyard effect to protect your fusion monsters. So all in all, if you can afford getting this card, then definitely consider picking it up. After the branded opening, which is searchable by Spriggan's Kit, we are of course going to be playing 3 copies of the branded fusion. To be completely honest, this is the heart and soul of the deck. It's really amazing. It's a Shaddoll fusion that requires no extra deck monsters on the field. You have to use Alubaz to fusion summon, and you're locked into fusions for the entire turn, but again, we only play fusion, so we really don't care at all. After the branded fusion, we are playing 3 branded in red. You could play 2 like some of the other builds, but I just feel like drawing this card is inherently good. You do need to have a monster in the graveyard to add back to use it, but if you do open it, you don't have to go out of your way to search it, so maybe you can search something like branded opening instead, making it to where your first turn combo could be that much crazier, because 9 times out of 10, you're just going to dump the Albion to grave, and in the end phase, you're just going to set the branded in red. But like I mentioned, if you have it, then you set something even better. We do have some more fusion spells. Again, we are not playing something like the Adventure package because we're on a budget. So alongside the Frightfur package, we do have the 3 copies of Polymerization. The more fusion spells you have, the easier it is to combo off. Having 3 poly in your deck makes it to where fusion summoning is that much easier. And like I mentioned, if you do have access to Chimera, this deck becomes that much more insane because poly makes it to where it can't be targeted. But again, it's a $60 card right now, so I would totally understand if you don't have it because, come on, this is a budget build. $60 is pretty steep. Alongside the polys, of course, we're going to be having the 3 Frightfur Patchwork. This is a +1 that is really amazing in the deck. Being able to grab yourself a poly and grab yourself an Edge Imp, that way you can start fusion summoning into all your new branded fusion monsters alongside Alubaz. Then being able to search another Patchwork with the Edge Imp afterwards, it's pretty crazy. Now, we are playing 1 more fusion spell just because we are lacking in the hand trap department. But again, if you have a bunch more hand traps already, then please add them to your deck. But I am playing 3 copies of Super Polymerization. Right now, DPE is running crazy, so it is very easy to get this card resolved. Since it's a dark fusion, it is so easy to use for any of your fusion monsters. And the fact that Super Poly cannot be responded to makes it to where breaking your opponent's first turn board becomes that much easier. I personally think this is more of a 1 or a 2 of, but with the rise of Despia, who knows, this card could be absolutely crazy. And not only that, we do have a couple other targets in the extra deck to go into, just in case you aren't playing those kind of matchups. After that, we do play 2 more 1-ofs in the deck, one being the Gold Sark that I mentioned earlier, being a Rhoda for your Spriggan's Kit, makes it to where getting to branded fusion is that much easier. And for the last 1-of in the deck, we are obviously playing the 1 Called By. It came in the structure deck. It's amazing right now. It helps your branded fusion resolve. It outs stuff like DPE, stops prank hit effects from resolving, hits Golden Lord. There's just so many things this card can do. I'm sad it's had 1, but Called By the Grave, in my eyes, is a staple in 99% of decks right now. So that's it for the main deck, a solid 40 cards, and like I mentioned, if this is still a little steep for your budget, go check out the other profile. Or if budget isn't a factor, of course I'm going to be posting my deck list with the Adventure package and all the other staples that come along with it. Budget is no problem with that build. So if that's something you're into, look forward to it in the future. I should be having that profile up shortly after this one. So subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, that way you guys don't miss that profile as well. So moving on to the extra deck, it's actually going to look very similar to what an extra deck would look like with the more expensive build. We're playing 2 copies of the Mirror Jade being your best interruption in the deck. A quick effect non-targeting banish that we have so many ways to summon multiple times in one turn. Makes it to where you can banish 2 or even 3 cards depending on what your hand is. After the Mirror Jade, we are playing 2 copies of ALUBER. This is basically another fusion summon on legs. By discarding a card, you can shuffle back the materials from the field, grave, or even the banish zone back into the deck, recurring your resources, to then fusion summon any of your other monsters that uses those materials you shuffled back. After the ALUBER, we are playing 2 copies of Albion. Very glad this came in the structure deck as well. Makes it very easy to get access to. On the field, it is basically a miracle fusion, so that is a cool thing you can do. You have to send Alubaz in a light to make it. But the really amazing thing about this card is during the end phase of the turn it's sent to the grave, you can either add to your hand or set a branded spell or trap. So 9 times out of 10, you'll use this in the end phase after you use your Mirror Jade to set a branded in red, making it to where you can fusion summon on your opponent's turn. After the Albion, I am playing 1 copy of the Blazing Dragon, and now that I'm thinking about it, I actually think this is technically the most expensive card in the deck. I think it's about $15 or $16, so that is technically more expensive than the branded opening. But if I'm completely honest, you really don't need to play this card either. You could easily cut this for a 3rd Albion because Albion does come up quite often when you dump it with Mirror Jade. Budget aside, if $15 for a fusion deck monster is too much, I totally understand. You can cut this and add any other copy of any of the other fusion monsters I'm about to show you. This card's really cool though. It can recur itself from the grave. That's pretty cool for the grind game. But the best part is while it's on the field after being fusion summoned, your opponent has to pay 600 life points to activate cards. And right now, with all these crazy combo decks running around, they're going to have to pay a lot of life points to do pretty much anything. Now, after the Blazing Dragon, I am playing a couple of the Despia fusion monsters. First being the Despian Cortis, and then the Despian Proskinian. Sorry if I slaughtered those names, but basically, these are some great targets for your deck because we are playing some of the Despia monsters. Cortis will basically lower all your opponent's monsters' attacks down to 0, making it easy to run over boards. And Proskinian is really amazing because it can revive a monster from your opponent's graveyard. So bringing back some Link monsters or bringing back DPE, this card actually is very crazy, and it's technically Super Poly targets as well. So if your opponent has the cards on the field, making these with Super Poly can be very devastating, especially if one of them is DPE, because again, the Proskinian can just bring it back from the grave. It's pretty insane. After the Despia stuff, it's just a bunch of tech one-ofs. We have the one Titaniclad. Really, this is pretty rare that you go into it, but it's still a pretty cool card. We don't play any of the Dogmatica stuff to search off of it in the end phase, but it does make for one really beefy monster if you do fusion summon it. Like I mentioned earlier, we are also playing the Iron Dash. When this is sent during the end phase, you can get access to your Spriggan's kit. So while we don't play ALUBER and have that kind of follow-up for the next turn, the fact that we have this to get us to Spriggan's kit makes it to where this deck can function basically the same. After the Iron Dash, we also have the Glory Dragon. Again, a pretty cool card. Can't be destroyed by battle, also prevents targeting, so that's pretty amazing. But the other thing that's really amazing is it requires a level 8 monster to make it, so if you use your Adlib or your Dramaturge to summon it, it'll actually trigger their effect as long as they're in your hand or on the field, letting you either special summon another fusion monster from your grave or banish, or bringing out a 3k beater that can negate monster effects. We played the one Drag Stapelio. This card is really amazing, and you actually make this in your deck inherently without Super Poly. After that, we do play the one Starving Venom. Again, you could use the Verte and the DP to make this, but again, it just takes 2 darks. It's a beater. It's got some really cool effects. If your opponent gets rid of it as well, they have to worry about a board wipe, so just like the Mirror Jade, this card puts a lot of pressure on your opponent. For the last monster in the deck, this is very specific, but we are playing one Prank Kids Weather Washer. This is definitely just a Super Poly target, but with Prank Kids being arguably one of the best decks in the format right now, this card is super cheap, so might as well throw it in the deck, because if you have Super Poly, Prank Kids are basically gonna auto-lose just off of that. So guys, that's it for the budget deck profile. Like I mentioned, if this is still a little too pricey for you, check out the 3 structure deck build. And if you're looking for something that's even more with no budget, stay tuned. Don't worry, there's going to be another profile coming up shortly. Subscribe to the channel, that way you can see it whenever it gets posted. And again, thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate all of you guys. There's a bunch of combos this deck can do as well, so if that's something you guys want to see, comment down below. I will gladly make a combo video for this specific budget build. Because like I said, this Frightfur package is so insane. The boards you can make are just as good, if not better, than some of the Despia builds you can do with ALUBER. So with all that being said, thanks for tuning in, and here's hoping to see you guys next time. Peace.